Hair loss can start controlling your life long before anybody else would call you bald. For example, you refuse to go outdoors without a cap. You check the weather because rain could expose your camouflage. You avoid photographs, swimming, dates, or letting anybody get too close. And you keep telling yourself, once the treatment starts working, I'll get my confidence back and live properly again. If any of that feels remotely familiar, this video is for you. I know because at different points several years ago, I did every one of those things. And it's particularly difficult when you're young and your peers aren't burdened with the same curse. So you feel like you're the only one going through it, and you just receive well-meant reassurance from people who don't truly understand what it's like. In this video, we're going to look at what male hair loss can do to your confidence, your dating life, your willingness to be intimate, and even your sense of who you are, your identity. More importantly, we'll look at how to take your hair seriously without allowing it to make your life smaller. I will show you how it's possible for hair loss to be clinically moderate, yet its impact on your life can be enormous. Because androgenetic alopecia is medically benign, restorative treatment is usually treated as cosmetic and is often not publicly funded. Despite this, the psychological burden of hair loss is both evident and prevalent. The clinical evidence even suggests so. This systematic review of 13 studies found consistent negative effects on quality of life, including body image, self-esteem, and social confidence. These all directly impact our well-being and our ability to participate in life. It also found that younger and single men often reported more preoccupation and more attempts to cope or conceal, which certainly describes the younger me using fibres. And the severity of balding assessed by a clinician did not reliably predict the extent of adversity that person experienced. Some men adapt quickly and come to terms fast. Some just don't care and barely think about it. From a psychological point of view, this is ideal. However, others, like myself some time ago, become deeply distressed by quite early loss and spend years struggling to accept fate and fighting against it. Clearly, the clinical severity and the lived severity of hair loss are very different measurements. A higher Norwood grade does not reliably mean greater distress. Remember that when someone tells you, "Oh, it's not that bad," or "Oh, it's hardly noticeable," they may not realize that how severe balding looks does not reliably predict how severely the person experiences it. And one of the first places you may hear these phrases of empty reassurance and then notice that difference is at work or university, or even school if you're unfortunate enough. One psychological impact of balding I remember experiencing is what I would call the professional confidence tax. You can still be capable, prepared, and professional while a slice of your attention is spent on questions that have nothing to do with your job or your studies, such as, is the light directly above me? Can people see through my fibres? Will it rain on the way there? Am I going to be photographed? And is my recession obvious from this angle? You are essentially trying to do your job while also observing yourself through the imagined eyes of everybody else. I experienced this firsthand during medical school placement. Hospitals have extremely unforgiving overhead lighting. And I used fibres for over a year, worried about where I stood. And I always carried an umbrella because unexpected rain could quickly undo the confidence that I had spent that morning trying to build. I was still perfectly capable at the tasks at hand, but some of the attention I wanted available for learning, communicating, and being present was being wasted on my hair. When things eventually got better though, I think I was less preoccupied with hiding and more willing to be seen, and better able to express the competence that was already there underneath. So in other words, hair loss may not directly reduce your ability to perform, but the self-consciousness can interfere with how freely you deploy the best version of yourself. If you feel that hair loss directly affects your ability to perform professionally, and you're not someone who simply doesn't care, then it ought to be addressed head-on, because addressing it directly may produce a significant improvement in your quality of life. And that improvement will extend beyond the professional setting, which brings us on to dating, a primary motivating factor for many people to address their appearance. Hair loss can affect your romantic life without anybody ever explicitly rejecting you because of it. Some perception studies have found that people, in general, judge balding photographs as older or less attractive. However, because you know how balding is generally perceived by the public, because that's also how you subconsciously perceive it, you may assume people will find you less attractive. You may delay making a dating profile or taking pictures for it. You may feel forced to use older pictures and then feel it's not worth it. If you do agree to date someone, you may choose venues based on the lighting, refuse daytime or outdoor plans, or avoid staying overnight. And then proper intimacy introduces another layer. Somebody may want to touch your hair. They may want to be physically close to you. You may wake up beside them before you've had a chance to style your hair. And if you use fibres or Topic or another similar form of camouflage, you may worry that it will move down your face, transfer onto a pillow, or reveal what it's concealing. Between 2020 and 2022, I hardly dated, and I went roughly 2 years without any real intimacy. Lockdown obviously contributed, but even when opportunities returned, my confidence returned much more slowly. Now, nobody sat me down and rejected me because of my hair. I mean, much of the time, I withdrew before anybody else had the chance to form an opinion. The sad truth for a lot of people who are socially withdrawn because of their hair is that you may never discover whether somebody would have accepted you because you rejected yourself on their behalf. Those perception studies I mentioned earlier tell us patterns of how hair loss is perceived in one group of people. They don't necessarily reflect the entire population. They cannot predict how a real person who otherwise rates your personality, or even still finds you handsome, will respond. A study can't absolutely apply to everybody. Unfortunately, intimacy requires some surrender of control and some willingness to be exposed. When your confidence depends on maintaining a carefully protected image, closeness can begin to feel threatening. Just be mindful that the more that you rigidly try to uphold a certain image, the less available you can become for connection. As closeness develops, being honest about the insecurity can prevent concealment from becoming a trap. However, unfortunately, another person's response is never completely under our control. Rejection is a part of life. The fear of being rejected because of your hair shouldn't isolate you from potential good experiences. Easier said than done, I know, but we know it's true. In short, try not to hide behind it, address it, but own it as well. Another way to show that you're not placing too much external weight on it is how you react when others point it out or try to offer reassurance. Your friends may tell you that your hair looks fine, that nobody can tell, or you could simply shave it and you'd still be attractive. I heard all of those things. They may be completely sincere, and they may even be right about how little other people notice or care. But they are answering the question, can anybody see it? Whereas you're wondering, when can I finally relax? They mean well, of course, but because it's not them in the situation, they may unintentionally underestimate the personal impact that hair loss has on our psyche and well-being. Now, I'm not saying that you should lecture them on why their reassurance is useless. Don't be combative when they're trying to be supportive. However, it's probably worth pointing out that how severe it looks does not reliably predict how severely it's experienced, and that simply acknowledging that is sufficient. There is also a strange social rule around male hair loss. As men, we're expected to care about looking confident, youthful, and attractive, or at the very least, to maintain ourselves. But when losing hair affects one of those things, the socially approved response is often to just laugh at ourselves and accept mockery, let go, shave it off and get ripped, or behave as though it never mattered. It's a bit contradictory. For some men, shaving is genuinely liberating, and good for you guys who can come to terms with it early, genuinely. For many others, particularly very young men, it feels like being asked to surrender before we've even processed what is happening. In my opinion, you're allowed to care about your hair without it turning into some measure of your character. You're obviously no less of a man for doing so caring about your hair does not make you less masculine. However, if you do lose your hair, would you still feel like yourself afterwards? Without us realizing, hair can become a bit of an identity anchor. Perhaps you were always known as the guy with great hair, and often people complimented it throughout your teens. Over time, that feature became part of the way other people reflected you back to yourself. Others placed value on it, so you started to feel a sense of worth from it. When it starts disappearing, you can feel that more than just density is being lost. A familiar version of yourself appears to be going along with it. That was the hardest part for me. I had been known for having great hair for a long time, and the prospect of becoming bald felt almost inconceivable. Friends told me that I would still be attractive without it, and they meant well, but attractiveness was only the surface question, and the deeper question was, would I still feel like myself? Identity disruption is a useful way of describing the feeling that your appearance no longer matches the person you recognize internally. And when a large proportion of your self-worth depends on one feature, psychologists often describe that self-worth as contingent. Put simply, your confidence remains stable only as long as that feature remains intact. This is what contingent self-worth means, and it's unhealthy. Think of your identity as a portfolio. If almost all of its value sits in one asset, a threat to that asset can disrupt the whole thing. During one of my worst sheds, when I first faced the possibility that I might genuinely become completely bald someday, I remember thinking, shit, I need more about me, because if I end up going completely bald, I need more things to be proud of to make up for it, or something like that. Part of that thought came from fear, obviously, and I wasn't thinking too clearly at the time. I almost believed that baldness would leave me with some kind of deficit that I then had to compensate for by becoming more successful, skilled, or interesting. I do not believe that now. Losing hair does not create some debt that you must repay through achievement. But the fear did reveal something quite useful. I had concentrated too much of my identity in one place. The healthier approach, I think, is to address your hair in the background while you continue building your life in the foreground. For me, that meant focusing on my career, learning completely new hobbies, training consistently and taking health seriously, making time for friends and family, investing in experiences, and eventually making this channel. However, those things were never intended as consolation prizes for hair loss. They just became genuine parts of who I am. Think about it. Whichever way your own hair restoration journey goes, whether it's regrowth, stabilization, a transplant, a hair system, or shaving it off, what sort of life will you be returning to? Who are you close to? What can you do? What do you stand for? What have you built? And what gives you pride when aesthetics are not involved? Just some questions to think about if you haven't yet. Having been through it, I would say that hair can remain a part of your identity without it dominating it entirely. Definitely, treat your hair in the background and build your life in the foreground. Invest in relationships, health, competence, interests, and character. Because once your identity becomes contingent on your hair, your happiness might do so as well. You may tell yourself something like, once the shedding stops, I'll relax, or once the temples fill in, I'll start dating, or once the treatment works, I'll become myself again. The goalpost can keep moving forever. Now, there's nothing unreasonable about wanting improvement, and I think we should all strive for it. And let's be honest, appearance matters to most people, and successful treatment can genuinely improve confidence. I mean, it certainly helped me. Once my hair situation was controlled, I stopped being avoidant socially and in dating, and by the time I reached London to start working after graduating from med school, my hair was in a much better place and I felt fully ready to encounter whatever opportunities lay ahead. So obviously, the cosmetic improvement mattered, but during those same years, I had also worked on my career, physique, skills, interests, and relationships, meaning I arrived with much more than just a better hairline. Treatment can take months or years. Those months and years still belong to the present you, not a future you. Don't lose time because of it. You can pursue good hair without it becoming some entry requirement for a good life. In short, contentment must exist today and must coexist with your current treatment plan. In fact, a very useful way to test this is to look at the rules that your hair routine has created. Fibres, styling, hair systems, and scalp micropigmentation can all be legitimate tools. They can give you enough confidence to participate in life fully. But ask yourself whether the routine expands your life or forces your life to accommodate it. For example, can you be caught in the rain? Can somebody touch your hair? Can you accept a spontaneous plan? Can you leave the house without checking it repeatedly? I mean, for me, when I used fibres, an umbrella became absolutely essential because rain was no longer just ordinary weather. It was a constant potential looming threat, particularly in the UK, which is a wet-ass country. However, scalp micropigmentation later helped me because it basically removed that whole maintenance burden. The gain turned out to be more psychological than cosmetic, which I didn't anticipate ahead of the treatment. Ideally, a camouflage should expand your life, not create these forbidden environments. Eventually, rain became just rain again, and nothing too threatening. However, if the rules around your hair are now controlling your work, relationships, or daily behavior, the distress may need treatment of its own. Regarding the psychosocial impact of hair loss, the evidence is strongest for body image and quality of life effects. Findings on depression vary between studies, and most men with androgenetic alopecia do not develop a severe psychiatric illness. A smaller group can experience profound anxiety, low mood, compulsive checking, avoidance, or a hopelessness, which are quite significant impacts on our well-being. So visible hair loss can cause genuine distress without necessarily meeting the criteria for body dysmorphic disorder. But when the preoccupation and impairment become disproportionate and dominate your day, proper psychological assessment is probably sensible. Distress does not need to be visible to everybody else before it deserves help, and it's okay to seek psychological support alongside your hair restoration journey if you need to. If you're feeling very hopeless and alone, I would encourage you to do so. This journey particularly sucks if done alone without support from friends and family. However, if you don't think you need professional psychological help but are still feeling down and unsure about things, particularly regarding your identity, here's what I would advise from my own experience. In any hair restoration journey, I would pay equal attention to these three things: your hair, your life, and your identity. Regarding your hair, take it seriously if you want to treat it. Get a proper assessment and diagnosis. Document change consistently but not too often, and choose a coherent, supervised treatment plan and review it at planned intervals. The other benefit of having a doctor manage your medical condition, like hair loss, is that they can also listen to your psychological needs and refer on or give advice if necessary. Regarding life, think carefully about what you have started avoiding, whether that be photos, social and work events, or intimacy. Use camouflage if it helps you participate, but reconsider the routine if maintaining it requires your whole life to become controlled. And do not wait for perfect confidence before returning to ordinary experiences. Confidence often develops through participation. Sometimes you begin living first and then the sense of security follows afterwards. Measure your progress in freedom as well as density, because for me, the goal is less distress, less preoccupation, and more freedom to live fully in the present. Regarding identity, continue investing in your relationships, health, competence, interests, and character. Ask yourself, if my hair looked exactly the same 1 year from now, what would I still want to have developed by then? Your hair needs a plan, but your life needs movement, and your identity needs to be like a diverse portfolio with several meaningful assets. You're allowed to treat your hair, conceal it, transplant it, wear a system, shave it, or decide that you are comfortable just leaving it alone. But your hair should not decide whether you date, whether you swim, whether you speak confidently at work, or whether another person is allowed to get close to you, because you may always care about it, while life simply goes on without you. To me, progress looks like no longer fearing wind, water, and sunlight. It looks like never turning down an invitation due to appearance, or like returning to expressive freedom both socially and professionally. So your hair might need a plan, but your life does not deserve to be on standby while that plan goes on. A good hair plan reduces uncertainty, but a good life plan reduces avoidance. Thank you so much for watching, and subscribe if you found this valuable. And if you can relate to any of this video, let me know how in the comments. You can also follow me on Instagram or TikTok for general education, although I can't provide individual medical advice. Stay safe, remember to live, and remember who you are, wherever you are on your journey.